Oh, Mrs. Crump? Council President Higgs? Here. Councilmember Raynor?
Here.
Councilmember Councilmember Scott? Order.
Here.
Give you a chance. Would you feel? Okay. Okay. If you could, please, and we can go ahead and stand at time.
Holy God, we gather tonight as servants of this community, grateful for the chance to work for the people of Seat Pleasant. As we begin this public session, grant us clarity, patience, and wisdom to guide our decisions. Lord, we would like to pause at this moment to honor our colleague and friend, Ms. Hope Love. Her dedication, her spirit, and her care for this city left a mark that will not fade. Please comfort her family, her loved ones, and all of us who feel her absence tonight. Help us carry forward the compassion and commitment she lived by. Bless this meeting, bless this council, bless the mayor, and bless the community that we serve. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you all so much. We're gonna go on to the approval of tonight's agenda, and again, council, we will not read all of those long.
Council President, can we move attach 6.1 to 4.4? Okay, with the adjustment of the agenda, moving 6.1 to 4.4, I move that we approve the agenda.
Any questions? Not hearing any? And Raynor.
sounds your vote for the approval of the, just pop, attorney.
You all so much. We're gonna move on to 1.5, the approval for the regular work session meeting minutes for Monday, October 6, 2025. Are there any questions?
There is a grammatical error. Just saw it. On one of the lines, my name is misspelled. Under report. Under 4.1.
Comment? Anyone else?
Measure passes 5.
We'll move on to 1.6, the approval of the public session meeting minutes for Monday, October 13th, 2025. So are there any questions? Not hearing any.
Live audio is open. Measure passes 5-1.
Thank you all. We're gonna move on to our citizen comments. Is there anyone online or have anyone sent any?
No comment. There are no citizens online.
Did you have a comment tonight? Okay, you can come on up. Thank you for being here this evening. You can just state your name and which ward.
Hi, I'm Charlene Smith, and I'm from Ward 3. And just have a question in reference to the job opportunities for Sea Pleasant. And looking online, I see with Chief Financial Officer, City Manager, Economic Development Grants Division, ARP Grant, Human Resources and Fleet. So are all of these positions still open? Or I remember hearing something about human resources. So He'll be hired, the human resources position. Is it updated? The job opportunities online.
Great question. Human resources.
Okay.
The senior accountant.
Mhm.
That's a,
I have a city manager. No applications? Just, no applications. Open.
It is still
Nobody's
open.
been
Well,
appointed.
it has closed. There were several applications. The council is in the process of making a decision.
Who was qualified?
Yes. That's all of our residents for this evening. We're going to move on to our presentation for the evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Councilwoman Crystal Orietta. I have the pleasure of representing District 7 on the County Council, serving as Vice Chair, but more importantly, I live here in the city of Sea Pleasant. There was a request to come before the council to talk about some concerns specifically around policing on areas that are adjacent to Sea Pleasant and what we could do on the county level. So I definitely want to address that, but then also if there's any other questions or things that we're working on the county council, want to leave opportunity for any members of the city to ask those questions. As many know, we have new leadership with the police department under Chief Nader. We've had the opportunity to meet a few times about how we can better collaborate on police presence for specific areas that have issues, like the sugar sack issue, for example. One of the things that we've committed to doing is similar to Walker Mill. The last chief police, what they tried to do was specialized intense policing for a certain amount of time. Usually they historically last a lot shorter, like let's say maybe 2 weeks. But they were trying out longer presences in particular areas to see if you had a longer presence, would it prevent crime, deterring it, if it's like a month instead of like 2 weeks. I'm talking to him about could we revisit that, continuing that under his leadership. And then my hope is that we could pinpoint some areas in District 7, this particular area being one, to try to have a specialized, intense policing effort. There are also a few pieces of legislation that we passed on the council side that our hope is that we can actually see them enforced under the new administration that I think also can be helpful when it comes to deterring crime. One of them was around establishments based upon how late that they stay open, mandating that they have plans that have to be approved by the police department. So depending upon this establishment, exactly how long if they stay open, would they hit the criteria of needing to have a plan by the police department? Those plans could include anything to mandatory on-site security during certain hours, looking at the quality of the security cameras that they provide. And then if they do not have a plan that is approved by the police department, if their establishment falls under the parameters, then they won't be able to be open some hours. So it's basically, if they want to be open late hours, then they need to have this approved plan working with the police department. So we were able, that's a bill that I championed, we passed it, but as many know, there's a lag sometimes between when you pass the legislation and implementation. So my goal is to work with our new county executive and the new leadership to make sure that this is actually enforced, meaning the police department has to come up with the process, the forms for individuals to apply, a process to approve the plans, and then the enforcement for DPI if they don't have the approved license to operate. We also worked on legislation around surveillance, and we passed legislation around that as well, mandatory cameras at a certain quality for different establishments. But a lot of that is after the fact, right? And we understand that police presence is what people want to see on the front end because it's more likely to deter crime if they're on site. So I just want to say that I want to work collaboratively with the city. I know it's outside of the city limits, but it's something that impacts the city to figure out what are tangible solutions that we could be asking of the police department moving forward. But I wanted to let you guys know the conversations I've already had, legislation that has already passed that I think could be impactful in this situation, but then also, more importantly, wanted to hear what are some of the solutions that you guys are looking for that I could bring back to the chief of police about how we could better partner with the city outside of just maybe this one location, but some other issues that you guys have seen.
Thank you so much for coming. Okay. As far as outside the areas, the interest I have, okay, would be how we can address things collaboratively, okay, with our city and the surrounding cities and other unincorporated areas in the county with reference to dark spots, okay. Typically, things happen in the dark, okay.
And I want to apologize ahead of time. I'm going to be looking down at my phone just to take notes,
That's
so
okay.
I'm not ignoring you.
That's all right. But with artificial intelligence, cameras, things we can do and so forth, that can be preventative measures to put that together. That would be something that we can actually work on, okay, collaboratively with reference to that. So if we can put together something that, in working with our utility companies and things of the nature, to identify various dark spots, okay, that can be dealt with. I think that would help enhance, because, bring light to an area, typically we can deter some things from actually happening.
Evening.
Times that I've been on, especially around the over by the church that's on Such Drive, the sidewalk cuts off and pedestrians are forced to walk the street. So that's been a major concern for me. I have asked numerous times, trying to figure out who can I speak with in reference to crosswalk on there. Maybe implementing a sidewalk.
I can put it on the list. So they're doing a sidewalk survey currently. So I talked to them maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, and they were starting to just do the basic inventory of seeing where a lot of our sidewalks were ending and had gaps, in communities that were just without sidewalks. We did put in additional money into the FY 26 budget for sidewalks enhancements. So I can make sure that as I put the road repaving and the sidewalk priority list together, that I have it listed there as one of them for them to review. Same with crosswalks. And so I want to make sure I have the street correct.
I didn't want to belabor you with many things this evening, so we can set
I'm
up a
here,
meeting so
so
we can
please
actually
do.
go over certain things. But I had an opportunity to do a waterways arrangement just this past Friday, had several cities involved to let people know exactly what goes on with reference to the environment and different waterways and how that impacts certain things, stormwater management and the like. So we were trying to address areas in specific with reference to where's a problematic arrangement with reference to stormwater management, okay, and certain areas that might be declared a brownfield or runoff or things of that nature. So we need to really talk about those things so that we can see how we can address it. We've been trying to do it in a manner, but the committee that I've sat on for many years and so forth, we're really trying to get the information out to citizens so they can understand the impacts of what takes place with the environment as a result, as a factor of stormwater management and things of that nature. So those are the kinds of things that I really want to, like this council would like to know and sit down and talk with you about the information that we have and how we can go about dealing with those problems. We certainly have in Sea Pleasant itself, we have areas that have like a drop-off, okay, where we're having problems with the earth actually moving, trees, things of that nature that need to be dealt with. That will impact the community as time goes on. That includes things like sinkholes and things of that nature. So there's several things, okay, that we need to talk about. Now, I know budgetary restraints deal with that, but we have ways through grant processes and so forth with reference to the state, also federal monies, that we can actually address these particular problems. So I'm not going to, I do want to have an opportunity, I think, well, the council to bring some things forward to you, in other words, like a wish list of things we'd like to address with you. I know you've had conversations with myself, also with various council members, with things that you try to do to sort of have an impact on us here. But those are the kinds of things as the city grows, because it's a growth process, and also with of course, with the federal shutdown, okay, and not knowing when that's going to happen, it's impacted a lot of our citizens. And we want to know, and you've been keeping abreast. I received the flyers. I'm quite sure many of us do with the various programs that you've been having to assist in that manner, so we're very appreciative.
No, thank you. And any way I could be helpful, so it's two-pronged. So if there's issues specifically within the city limits when it comes to stormwater management or infrastructure, and there's ways I can be assist with getting funding from the state, please let me know. I have no problem doing like letters of support or talking to my counterparts in the delegation. When it comes to property line where it's the county side that's adjacent that you feel like it impacts, again, please let me know so I can make sure that it's prioritized in the budget process. One area I do feel like historically District 7 has been left out a lot when it comes to funding projects around stormwater management. And so I've been advocating, because the last budget cycle we had no priorities in our district around stormwater management. And so my hope is that that'll change in the next budget cycle. And hearing, and as we prepare, if we get our list together now, it gets us in a better opportunity to advocate for those type of projects next year.
Lastly, okay, you've heard this before. It's like a broken record.
Yes.
Okay, but on us being the inner beltway, being impacted by being a food desert and not having the various things that are necessary for our citizens to have, and what we call or working towards a walkable community. So those are the kinds of things that are impacting us. Those are the kinds of things that are being questioned by our citizens. Okay, so it's major. I know it's like a record. You've heard it. You know it's there. But those are the kind of things we'd like to address and work with you collaboratively to see if those things actually can help us in that regard.
Yeah, that's a huge issue. Probably one of, especially the access to a grocery store. If I could say like the number one thing that if I could check it off my list for Sea Pleasant that I could do in the hopeful 2 terms that I have sitting in the seat, that will be it. Some things that we're doing now to work towards that is the legislation we did around trying to look at a feasibility study around of county-owned or any type of government-assisted-owned grocery store. You know, some jurisdictions it's worked across the country, some areas it has not. So the feasibility study will have us look at all miles co-op, 100% owned, partnerships, looking at different incentives, One incentives, for example, is looking at if the county owns the building, but we subsidize the rent at such a reduced rate, $1, $2, making the profit margin make sense for a major grocer. So I'm hopeful that feasibility study will hopefully reap some benefits for our actual grocery store. Also looking at the free grocery store model that Baltimore has in their library system. I put money in the budget for FY26 to have that model or designated in District 7. So I've been working with parking planning and the library system to see what sites make the most sense to have that model. And then I've been working with trying to get investors to look at developing on this side of the Blue Line corridor. We had a trip to South Korea to look at investors. Actually today we had the CEO fly out to meet with us and the county executive, and we're actually taking him on a tour of the corridor. And I'm specifically pitching Addison Plaza in this area as my priority area for development.
Good evening. So I wanted to go back to the letter that was sent about the business that's adjacent to the city. I have a couple concerns. I feel like it has been an area that we've talked about before. And so moving forward, one, I would like for us to have a working meeting. So I understand here we're just kind of talking about concerns, but I would like for there to be an actual meeting where we work out the kinks, right? Ideally, in my city council dreams, there would be some type of MOU with standard operating procedures, knowing how to respond to certain things. I heard you say that there was some policies passed in regards to late hours, but the last fatal shooting was in the middle of the day. So that's not even, that won't address that. The people hang out there, and then there's a property that is on the backside of the business that they also hang out. We have pretty airtight nuisance laws here in the city of Sea Pleasant. I have not read up on the county's nuisance laws to see, the differences, but I would also, I want an MOU with the police department, but also with code enforcement, right? Like, are they coming out? Are they enforcing the nuisance laws? We get calls all the time about whether, them doing whatever. I've called myself. The last shooting that we had, after the shooting, the very next day, they were out there that night in the parking lot doing whatever they were doing. I called 911, told them what was happening, told them the history about the retaliation, and they literally said they weren't coming. So I'm doing the right thing, right? I'm going to the right people. I'm following what you guys are saying, but nothing is happening. So I want to see us put things in place. I don't want them to just tell us like, oh, we're going to work on it, we're going to partner. I want to see a real partnership where we're all at the table and doing what makes sense for our community. If I recall correctly, at one point, gunfire from there, because the way it's situated, gunfire from there came into the city, right? And so, like, there's no way that just Sea Pleasant or just the county can address this. We've got to do it together, and it needs to be sooner than later, because one life is enough. But there's been multiple. And I feel like Sea Pleasant does their best, but the county has to work with us too. And the idea that, oh, we'll let Sea Pleasant handle it, or we'll swoop in after Sea Pleasant has done all the work, and then, try to say, we saved the day. Like, it's not about getting kudos. People want to be safe. The people in that community have lived there for a very long time. Everyone right there in that Holly Park area, there are people who've lived there since that development has been built. And, like, I want people to feel safe in their community and not feel like, they have to give up what they call home just to feel comfortable laying their head at night. In addition to that, what was the last? The other thing that the other solution I have is something that we would probably need to talk about more private.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just echo your sentiments. I think it has been sadly sometimes difficult to get the level of enforcement that we'd like to see from some of the agencies. As many know, I've done open letters, town halls, pressure on the leadership of seeing a lack of response, especially inside of the Beltway and in District 7. What I can say firmly, just off of the leadership of our new county executive and the new chief of police, I do feel like there's an opportunity to forge those relationships and those partnerships in a way that we have not historically. With the current chief of police, I've had exactly what you're talking about, meetings with the owner, the police department, including the chief, the commanders for that location, and had a working meeting where we could just work together on all the issues, the concerns, and next steps. And even though the chief of police didn't have to be on that meeting, he could have just had the commander for that location. He attended, and we made sure we could work through and create the partnership so it could last beyond a one phone call. And there's other sites where I've done the same. The police chief has come out, the commanders. We worked on the MOU for that location, really so that the police could have that agreement where they could trespass someone, because some businesses don't have that agreement with the police department, so they have no right to do it. So they have to have that agreement set with the police department, so if they go on their own and the owner is not the one that called, they will have the authority to trespass them without a call. So we've already started doing those community walks, those meetings, collaborating to having those types of agreements. And so I have no problem making sure that we do a similar meeting, similar agreement, and hopefully some of it, you need the collaboration from the owner about having that, especially with the right for the police to do trespassing, et cetera. But there's some things with or without the cooperation of the owner, we could have agreements with the city. And so I have no problem definitely setting that meeting up with the chief of police to talk about how we can work together moving forward.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you, Councilmember McCarthy, for the suggestion for the MOU. And I think we walked with Park and Planning, with Dean, who is the Northern Regional leader of the area, and we looked at Berkeley Park. Anyway, we were mentioning MOU, and we're talking about things that the city does well, that then they have low-hanging fruit that they can implement. So I think that even though there are some concerns around like infrastructure, even for the security plans, maybe there are some things that could be done like in the pilot phase or whatever. So I'm curious to know if there's a timeline for the security plans that you have in place through the legislation that still needs the infrastructure, and also if there are some successes from that intensive security that was done in Walker-Mill?
Yeah, so I don't remember the stats offhand, but when they did a presentation to kind of show us the results of that versus the traditional method, they saw a consistent, reduction in crime. And so they had the data points that showed that they did see a longer reduction in crime based on using that method. And it's one of the reasons that I do want to ask the new chief to consider it, because sometimes when you have new leaders, they want to start something new. But I think if we were on a right path and something had data points that were working, that we should continue to roll it out in different communities and still test it, obviously continue to make it better, but they did have the data points to show that it did make a significant difference. And then about the timeline, so I've been meeting with the administration to get updates on all of the legislation that we've passed that we haven't seen movement on, to see where they are and do planning meetings, because I know some of the positions have new directors. So my goal is we get on recess on November 18th. So letting them kind of catch their breath on all the bills we're still passing, but we are set to meet to go over all of the pending legislation, give them about a month or two to get the updates and then meet back with us. So my goal is by the time we come back in session, that we be able to have a briefing on updates on all the legislation that we have had pending. Another thing that we're looking to do on the county council side is one of the things we realize is there has been that gap we said about we pass legislation and then it's usually 99.9% is going to be on the executive side, to implement it. So we've been in talks about creating a new role on the council legislative branch side that's all about implementation, so that we don't have that gap between we passed a bill and who's checking on the implementation to make sure that it's rolling out and it's rolling out across the county. Because we had, for example, the senior assistant fund, it passed. We fought, we got the money on the state, but then it was almost a year out before the senior assistant fund was up and running, and the parameters of it didn't match the legislation that we passed, right? And so, because it only covered rent, and it was supposed to cover rent and mortgage assistance for seniors. Because we know we have a lot of seniors that live in their home but need assistance, so it's not just rent. And so that was what made me think we need a better process that has someone from the legislative side of the government tracking the implementation to ensure it matches with the policy.
So I think it'll come out, flush out this MOU and what roles and responsibilities are, because the spillover comes into like community trust too. So what the county does or doesn't do, then our officers then have to respond and talk to residents. There are costs associated with those things, but if there is an MOU in place, we can talk about what that looks like, resource sharing, et cetera. So I'm excited about the opportunity to have the working group that I think you're committed to exploring, as well as the different promises that we can follow up on.
For sure. And I definitely want to circle back, because when I was talking to the police department around MOUs, I was under the impression from their side that, are you talking about just between the police departments or the specific location? Because I was under the impression that there was an MOU between the municipalities, but and the reason this comes up is because I'm working on legislation following the death of young Zoe that is going to hold municipalities accountable to having the same enforcement regulations around Chase as our county police officers do. And it was brought to my attention that they had just signed MOUs across the municipalities. So they did not sign one with the C Pleasant. I want to know why, and why C Pleasant has been left out of signing MOUs with the police department.
So I think I'm gonna have Councilman McCarty specific MOU that she talked about.
Okay.
But the model of collaboration that I'm talking about is the same way we were able to enter in, having conversation, and have Dean Turbo come out, walk the park, and think about things not included in the sport, do and what they do, the differences, and refinements in that way. So, Councilman McCarthy, is there something specific you're talking about that's different from what I'm saying?
Yeah, so, yes, I'm thinking very differently. While I do mean police department, I'm thinking a little further than that. So our police department I'm thinking public safety, so that encompasses NCC. And so when I'm talking about an MOU, I mean like conversation. So I'm
more than
I'm going
just
further
the
than
police
just
department.
policing. Is
Okay.
what I mean by the MOU, right? So like not just something on paper that says like we back you guys up or they back us up. No, I mean in way deeper than that. I mean in terms of what's being enforced in C Pleasant for our code enforcement laws as well.
Got it.
Right? Because I'm sure that if this business was inside of the city of C Pleasant, there would be a much different outcome. We wouldn't still be talking about this years later. This literally has been a problem since I've been in Sea Pleasant. I've been in Sea Pleasant since 2006, and this business has been a problem since then.
Yeah.
And almost nothing has ever been done about it. And so we don't have those problems typically with our businesses. Now, there are some, but it usually gets taken care of because, like I said, our nuisance laws are pretty tight and they're enforced.
Right. Yeah, that's probably I agree. I mean, that's the easiest way to say it. I mean, I feel like there's a issue that we have around enforcement. We've heard the complaints, and I don't want to minimize it, from DPI about staffing, because we have to be, our municipalities are a lot smaller than our county, right? So I want to be fair in that, and I don't want to compare their load to a lot of our municipalities. But the reality is, going back to what constituents expect, they expect the law to be enforced. And so I'm big on the last few budgets about increasing the staffing, increasing the incentives, because sometimes we'll lose enforcement to other jurisdictions because maybe they pay more than we offer here in Prince George's County, specifically around DPI. But I do think it's something that we have to staff up, that we have to give the resources, because we'll never get our community with where we want it if we don't have enforcement. Because if the businesses know that there's not going to be any consequence, they have no reason to shape up. Another issue is that when I met with DPI, I've been doing walks on businesses with specifically DPI, asking them, hey, look at this. This is a violation. Do you have it listed as a violation? What's going on here? And one of the issues is that they have millions of dollars worth of violations that have never been collected. And so another issue is that businesses know they can get a violation and not pay it, and then there's no consequences. And that's one of the reasons I just passed legislation to say, if you get a violation and you don't pay it, that we have the right to take a lien on your taxes for your violations. And then if you get certain violations more than 4 times in a year, especially around cleanliness, like cutting, trimming your property, a lot of the things that we know blight a property, that lead to crime when it's deteriorated, that says we can step in and manage your property as a county, and you're gonna pay 100% of the cost plus 10% administration costs. And again, if you don't pay it, we can levy that against your property taxes. But that has to be enforced. I passed the legislation, it's law now. But if it's not enforced, it won't have the impact that we're looking for.
I think the question is answered. I think the benefit of why I kept bringing up parking plan as an example is because we were able to show how our officers can enforce and how they do things differently than the counties, like everything they have to do at mass compared to what we may need and the frequency and real-time response. And so it sounds like there might even be, to your point, there are MOUs in place in the context of what you're talking about, review processes of that or timelines to review that to see if there's a benefit to both, and if there is a gap that lends itself to something that has to be in this other place, and or successes that are built in or built off to make sure that we can get what we need. And so models of successes of what you're doing, again, at Walker Mill or some other place. So at least that's what it sounds like to me. But thank you.
You're welcome.
I just wanted you to talk. Testing. Okay, I just wanted you just to talk a little bit to the community in reference to the businesses, the role of the county, the role of Sea Pleasant, because, you know, it was a lot of talk about the tobacco stores coming in our area. And, you know, I just don't want residents to assume that, because the first thing they say, what is Sea Pleasant doing, bringing all these tobacco stores? So could you just elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so tobacco stores or 24-hour convenience stores, I think, so there's a misconception, and I always try to clear it up, especially for our municipalities and for the council, that we will approve and see the permits for these businesses when they come, and that is not how it works. No permit comes before the county council at all. for any use of any business. And I'm similarly sure it is the same for the municipalities. All of those permits for tobacco stores, 24-hour convenience stores, any business goes through DPI. And so one of the issues we see is that we won't know that a permit has been issued for this business until a sign is coming up, right? One of the ways that we try to combat that specifically for the municipalities, Councilman McCarthy asked for me to put a piece of legislation around notification as soon as the application comes to DPI, that it's sent to the municipalities as well. And so I did pass that legislation to just assist with the council being notified as soon as the application process happens with DPI. But on the record, for the community, your city council will not be approving those types of permits. Your county council representative does not approve those types of permits. They go through DPI. One of the things that we've been trying to do to combat them, because we have a huge oversaturation issue, we passed legislation to limit just 24-hour tobacco stores completely. Then the issue we learned is that they don't get a tobacco store license. They're getting a convenience store license. So then we had to go back and say, okay, if you have a convenience store, but the way the law was written, it was based on a footprint of how much tobacco products you sell. We reduced it to if 3% or more of your floor print is tobacco products. No matter if you have a tobacco license or convenience store license, you have to follow the same law as the ones we've passed for the 24-hour tobacco stores. The issue we had was around enforcement. DPI said they had difficulty enforcing it, even though we had used the base of the law that had always been there, which was measuring the floor print of the store. So one of my goals during recess is to meet with them again, to go over all of the policies and procedures for them to tell us again, what's the best way for us to write this to help you enforce it? And then also to hold them accountable. You can't keep saying, it's hard to enforce this, it's hard to enforce that, right? You tell us the issue, we pass the legislation, the expectation is you enforce it. The other law that we passed was that if you stayed at a tobacco store, that you had 2 years from the time we passed it to either change the floor print of your store or you had to move into light or heavy industrial zones. We are coming up on that time limit where the DPI is now going to have to start enforcing that. So again, that's on my list of things to meet with them, to ask them, how do they plan on rolling that out? How are they going to do the meetings? When are they going to start enforcing it? So because the stores have had the 2 years that we legally have to give them based on the Supreme Court. And then the last part was the LED lights. That is the new law. They are not allowed to have LED lights. This doesn't matter if they're a tobacco store, a convenience store, a nail shop. It does not matter. We had issues because we originally passed it as tobacco stores. DPI wasn't enforcing it. They said they had issues. So I said, fine, we will outlaw them completely. So that's what we did. They're not allowed completely. So that's just another thing, because I know we have those lovely LED lights right there in Addison Plaza that, are not legal anymore in the county. But the enforcement is the key, because it is the law. And that's as you all know, as legislators, we're the legislative branch. We pass the law, and then we pass it on to the executive branch to implement it. So I definitely understand the pain and the struggle. Once you pass the law, I cannot impose my will to the executive branch, right? I just have to work collaboratively. But I do, again, want to reiterate that I feel like under the new leadership and the meetings that we've had and the collaboration, that there is an intention with the new county executive to enforce the laws that we've passed. Hello.
You forgot to mention in your introduction, you live in the best ward in Seat Pleasant.
Oh, yes, everyone knows.
I got a lot of stuff, but my colleagues are not gonna let me go through all this stuff, but, I'm gonna touch on a couple of them. And I know I can walk around the corner and talk to you at any time, but I want to get this out since these, public and working sessions are recorded. People go back weeks and weeks and, review them at their leisure. I think my colleagues did a great job on the Sugar Shack. And I'm going to say just a few things about that, and then I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
But it's very important that we get some movement in that. And I'll just ask you, do you remember the gas station at the corner of Addison Road South and Addison Road and County Road? If you go straight up Addison Road here.
The one that had the accident? Oh, the one
Is
further
that
up?
Walker Mill? I'm sorry, Walker Mill.
Okay, yes.
So that was closed, it's open now,
Mhm.
but that was closed down because of a shooting.
Mhm.
And not only closed down, across the street where that industrial business is, it was a county cop sitting there for months.
Right.
That business was closed.
Mhm.
I'm sure we've had more than one incident where we're trying to get some movement on. And question for you, since, there are areas of the county, especially in Seat Pleasant, where you have Seat Pleasant on one side, the county on the other. I think from what I see, not from what I hear, but from what I see, I think the county police, Seat Pleasant has. And I don't think they're really taking care of the areas of the county that are truly the county. How do you feel about that? And then I'll have a follow-up.
Yeah, and so just want to point on what you said about Walker Mill. That was part of what I was just mentioning about that concentrated work with the police department. That was with Walker Mill. And so what you saw about constant police presence, that was part of that operation. And so you saw it and the data showed it. It did have a huge impact. And that is one of the reasons why I would like to move that model across other issue areas like what we have here adjacent to Seat Pleasant. And then the second concern about ensuring that the area is not left without county police intervening and leaving the entire area to just Seat Pleasant police. One, I agree with you, it needs to be a collaboration that obviously the city has Seat Pleasant, and then they should also come into the city if needed to help. But there should not be an abandoning of the areas adjacent to the city at all. And so I think as I have the meetings with the new chief of police and raising concerns with him, I could make sure that this is a top agenda item, that this is how the residents feel about the representation, talking with the commanders that have this area, and making sure that we see a shift in that, because that should not be how it is.
Is there any legislation currently where that one business was closed? Is there any legislation where it says, hey, if you continue to be a nuisance business, we can shut you down?
Oh, yeah. So I drafted legislation and the lawyer said I legally cannot do that. So I'm working to talk to the AG's office to get the parameters on what we legally can or cannot do. So I've been working on this for a little bit over a year because I had the same thought. I just feel like there should be a certain number of violations in a certain amount of time frame that if you keep on doing this, we can just take your UNO. If you really want people to operate, we're going to take your permit. So the only concern that we have right now is that we have to do it in a way that we know we won't be challenged in court. So that's in the works. My hopes is between the conversations with the AG's office and our lawyers that we'll find some variation of that works. The closest that we've gotten to it is the violations and putting it on their property taxes and forcing them to pay. And upping the fine amount, because at a point, fines were capped at $1,000. We had to go to the state and get the authority to raise them. We got them raised to 5,000, which is still a small amount. But all of that has to come from the state. Then we fought for the right for abandoned properties to charge 2.5 times the tax rate if they leave their properties vacant and abandoned. So we're working to get the authority that we need from the state, and then working to see what we can do around just taking people's UNOs if they have too many violations.
Good. You had mentioned about 5 minutes ago about the legislation that your colleagues have passed about moving these tobacco stores to industrial areas. What's the timeline on that?
It was 2 years, so I believe it would start either at the end of this year, beginning of 2026, from when we passed. It was one of the first bills that I passed, so we should be hitting on the time limit now.
Just a few more, because my colleagues are going to cut me off. Blue Line Corridor. When you hear that, what comes to mind? What comes to your mind?
Opportunity, really. I think that developing this Blue Line Corridor, I don't think we'll see it finished by the end of my term, but my goal is to see shovels in the ground, major projects solidified, and the investment dollars, especially on this side of the Blue Line Corridor. One of the things myself and the county executive, we've spoken at length about understanding that this side of the corridor is the gateway from DC, and it's a lost opportunity not to have the investment there. And she has committed. We know that before, a lot of the projects weren't slated. Well, none of the projects were slated for 7, which meant Capitol Heights and Sea Pleasant area. I've got assurances from the new leadership that that's going to change, and that we will see projects and funding from the Blue Line Corridor investment on this side of the corridor. As we know, we do have a few pending projects, like the 2 adjacent to the Addison Road Metro Station, the one close by Old Central, with the senior housing and Mission of Love rebuild, plus the townhome development. So I think there's a huge opportunity. What I'm laser focused on figuring out is investment to revitalize Addison Plaza. I would like to have meetings with the owners there. I have some, the county executive and I are aligned with that being prime real estate that needs to be developed in a way that benefits the residents, and that we want to hold the owner accountable to getting us that type of development.
We've been fighting with some of the business owners just to pave their parking lot, and we have the best code enforcers in the county. Thank you, Mr. Grant, your team, the best. And I think if the county starts to do their job in code enforcement and a lot of other things that seem to be broken, right now, from what you said and what I see, there's no accountability now in this county. Somebody hasn't been doing their job, and they still have their job, but they don't work for me.
You don't gotta tell me. I am known for that. If people aren't doing, I don't believe in that. I believe people pay us. They pay me to sit in these seats. They pay for the people that have these positions, and we have a responsibility to deliver them. And if heads of agencies and if things aren't working, we don't get free passes because of relationships and who you like. There's a moral responsibility to do the job because people are paying their hard tax dollars and are expecting these results. I 100% agree with you about accountability. We had one example is the Suitland High School. Everyone knows, that this is going to be one of the most expensive, it will be the most expensive high school in the state of Maryland. What people don't know is that because DPI was delayed by years in permitting that we're paying $22 million extra. $22 million more than it should cost to build something we're building because one of our own agencies delayed permitting. To me, that's a fireable offense. Someone should have lost their job. And so I do think that it is very important that we have accountability for how money is spent, for the results. And one thing I'm big on is that accountability, because my job is to bring them before us during council hearings, to ask the tough questions, to push them on why this is not happening. But this is what I always tell residents, you know, I'm going to do my part there, but then that's where I need the residents to back it up, because I am not the person that can fire that person, right? I am the person that can hold them accountable in a hearing setting. And the residents, then it's our job for the outcry on accountability. And when we talk about the school system being the number one thing that we spend funding on, we don't have but we have our kids when it comes to reading and math that we're constantly in the bottom two. But then we are bleeding dry in construction dollars, where people are making in millions and millions and millions of dollars off of our backs, while our children sometimes don't have working water fountains. It doesn't make any sense. And so I think accountability is crucial.
Just a few more, Councilwoman. Just a few more. I'm sorry. Can you talk about DPI in terms of who are they, who do they report to, what is their role in this government, and park and planning?
Right. DPI, Department of Permitting, Inspection, and Enforcement. So they pretty much have like two wings. They separate the permitting, and then they have enforcement. And then inspections happen at both parts. Sometimes they have inspections during the permit process, and they have inspections when they're doing enforcement. That agency, like all agencies, sit under the executive branch of government. And park and planning, they have those two sections. They have recreation, running all of our park facilities and parks. Then they have planning. So for example, when we did the Blue Line corridor, that amendment, you had them have all the meetings and talk about all the things you want to see in development. So all of the planning sits under there. The planning board, when it comes to zoning, sits with on the planning side. And then they have the park police. So park police manages all the police at the different parks and recreation centers. They are different because they're cross-jurisdictional. So though we have a chairman and a director over planning and a director over recreation, they work in hand also with Montgomery County.
I just have two more for you, and then I can let you go.
You're fine.
Even though I have 10 more, but my colleagues are not going to let me do that. Well, I have one. How about one more, and then one thing I want her to put in her note.
Okay.
Can I do that? One? Okay. So the roads, I see some roads now in the county are now getting paved.
Mm-hmm.
What is the process for that? Who decides, oh, that road needs done, oh, no, that road over there needs
Right.
paving?
Department of Public Works and Transportation, so about a year ago, they created a new system to evaluate the roads. So it's relatively new. So there was a time where, for example, there might be 32 million, which is historically how much has gone into road repaving. And they would try to divide that 32 million across each councilmatic district. But then they are still the entity that chooses which ones are the priority. About a year ago, they said they felt like that might not be the best way to do it, and that they wanted to evaluate roads using a system that they felt on their end would be fairer. One of the concerns, though, we had is that there's a possibility that some roads might be ranked as priority, And then that could end up leaving a district out because maybe their roads aren't ranked as a party using this system. So that's really a concern of mine and a reason why I want to have us evaluate the new process that they've rolled out. But one piece of legislation that I did pass to help the process be more transparent, before, we weren't really flagged when they signed the contracts. Historically, like maybe years and years ago, they used to work more hand in hand with the council members and try to show the list and let the council members, add or tweak the list because they're more connected with the residents, but that had stopped. This legislation made it mandatory that they would have to come before TIEE, which is our committee where Department of Public Works and Transportation sits, and they'll have to present their suggested list of roads before the council so that we have an opportunity to negotiate with them changes so that we're not blindsided by a signed contract. So the decision still lays with Department of Public Works and Transportation, but allows more transparency so we'll know and the residents will know beforehand what they're considering.
And if you can just put this in your notes, I've tried, unsuccessful. Central Avenue and Addison Road, you go out City Hall, make a right, go across Central Avenue. It's a storm drain there that has been pretty much clogged up for years, and when it rains, it's almost unpassable. No one from the county seems very important for them to come out, clean that drain out.
And it's a storm drain on Central Ave and
It's on
Addison Road.
Addison Road and Central, but the actual storm drain is on Addison Road.
Right here, the banner?
Right there in the
No,
corner.
sir. It's right.
Oh, yeah.
Drive there.
I'm just gonna sneak one more in. What committees are you on? And that's my last question.
What committees do I sit on? So currently I am the chair of Education, Workforce, and Development. I sit on Government Operation and Fiscal Policy. I vice chair PHED, Planning, Housing, Economic Development, and I'm vice chair of General Assembly.
Thank
So I'm
you.
basically on everything but TIE. Oh, and I'm on Health and Human Services and Public Safety.
Thank you for answering my questions. I'm sure the citizens that go back and listen to this will appreciate
So thank you.
So much
Thank
for
you.
taking your time out this evening. We appreciate you, and I'm quite sure I saw you taking notes. If you need follow-up or have a question about something, I'm quite sure you can contact the clerk office. Oh, I didn't see Councilman Raynard. Please let him speak.
Because Councilman Jones did some homework. The only reason I'm going to ask, for federal employees here in, I don't know what, I guess we consider the central part of the county, I don't know. But Ed Burrows was apparently able to get some money from MGM for folks in Temple Hills, Camp Springs, Fort Washington, that area. What's the probability of helping out folks on this side?
Yeah, so there's the MGM Impact Funds. So they've been around, it was an agreement when they built MGM. And so there's $10 million that is specifically for the impact area of that project. So the reason why the funding can only be spent in the impact areas is because it's from that pot of money. So, because a lot of people call about like the senior fund, there's specific funds, and kudos to Chairman Burrows because that fund existed well before him, but they used those funds to supplant resources and not what it was actually intended to do. So the reason why it seems so new is because for the first time, it's actually being used for what it was intended to use, services for communities. Before they were using it to play the police department that people already use their taxes for signage, for everything but the resources. So I just want to give him his accolades for his work to change it so that it could be used to help his residents. So that's the reason that fund exists only for District 8. So one of the things that I've done just for District 7 specifically is we have the food distribution that operates monthly. Originally, it was focused on seniors. We've opened it to seniors and our federal workers. We also have a utilities assistance program for our federal workers. Also passed legislation to give preference for hiring for federal workers that have been laid off to county jobs. And then we're working on a specific program with Employ Prince George's and asking for there to be a satellite office in District 7, specifically around training and preparedness around hiring. So we are rolling out some robust offerings specifically for federal workers in District 7, but that's the reason we don't have set aside resources, is because it's for impact funds that can only legally be spent in that impact area. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for coming out this evening and speaking with the council. I just wanted to put a timeline on that follow-up and that working meeting. If we could at least have it scheduled within the next 2 weeks. Doesn't have to happen within the next 2 weeks, but if we can have something on the books. And I see that you're taking notes, but Council President was so smart to say, reach out to the clerk department to get the minutes so that you can have everything. They can even provide you with the recording.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much.
Here we go.
And the working meeting is for, do you want to meet with me first or to talk about the vision for the MOU? Since it's more than the police department, or do you want me to set up the meeting with the police chief within the next 2 weeks?
It's up to the council how they want to do it. Ideally, there would be an internal meeting. Right, an internal meeting first for them to figure out what they want composed in there, and then to meet with the agencies so that they're not, wasting time.
Okay, so the meeting within the 2 weeks is just a working meeting between myself and my staff and council. Okay.
And then there's a public safety committee. Chair is Councilmember Scott.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
I think that's it for this evening, unless you have something else you want to bring to our attention.
The only thing, I will plug a few things. So we have the food distribution with Juana Durant on the 22nd at Bishop McLemore. So if you know anyone that's in need, our goal is to do 1,000+ families with turkeys and food boxes. On the, sorry, get my notes. We are also hosting a Thanksgiving dinner on November 25th. So it's just for the community to get together, and we know some people don't have family to spend the holidays with and have the opportunity to fellowship, and that is at 6 p.m. I believe at Andrew Jackson. I will send the flyer to be posted out and shared if people would like to attend that meeting. And I think those are the two public things that we have coming. So just wanted to make sure that everyone knew about that. The session for us ends on November 18th, and then we'll be going into recess. But that'll be a great time. If there's priorities you guys have for bond bills on the state, or issues that you guys want from the state level, or things you want us to prioritize when we come back in the session, that end of November will be the perfect time, the beginning of December, to meet and go over those priorities.
Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
will be in contact. We'll write down everything. We'll meet. No,
And I apologize that I can't stay, but I have not been home yet, and I gotta see my little baby. So,
we definitely understand. Thank
Thank
you
you
all for
all.
coming out. Thank you. We're going to move on to our Section 4 legislation, and we have 3 that were from last week. You want to start with 4.1, just in case there's questions? Ms. Crump is gonna, are you doing the legislation? 4.1, but we're not gonna read them all again. We went through them 11 pages.
There's a summary at the top.
Ordinance number 0-026, 4, introduced by City Council, date introduced November 3rd, 2025. First reading, November 3rd, 2025. Second day, November 5. Chapter 67, Property Maintenance. For the purpose of adopting the 2021 International Property Code published by the International Code Council as the Property Maintenance Code for the City of Sea Pleasant, subject to certain modifications to address conditions particular to the City of Sea Pleasant, establishing the minimum regulations governing the conditions and maintenance of all property, buildings, and structures within the municipal boundaries of the City of Sea Pleasant, providing standards for supplies, utilities, and facilities and other physical things and conditions essential to ensure that structures are safe, sanitary, and fit for the occupation and use. Providing for the condemnation of buildings and structures unfit for human occupancy and use, and demolition of such structure. Providing penalties for violations and for enforcement of the property maintenance code. Providing for appeals and judicial review of certain orders or decisions relating to the property maintenance code, providing for the application for such regulations, standards, and penalties, providing that the titles of this ordinance shall be deemed a fair summary, and generally relating to the adoption of a property maintenance code for the City of Sea.
Thank you so much for giving us the summary. I want to approve this ordinance this evening.
I move that we approve ordinance O-26-04.
Question.
I know that we're doing this now. We were made aware last week that there is a more updated version. And so I just ask that once this is, begins to be implemented, that we immediately start to work on the next update once it's available.
Are there any questions, comments, concerns? Any other?
Line voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Move on to 4.2.
Ordinance 02605, first reading November 3rd, 2025, second reading 10th, 5. Ordinance concerning amendment of the fiscal year 2025-26 budget, City of Sea Pleasant, Maryland. Section 1, be it ordained by the City of Sea Pleasant, ordained by the Sea Pleasant City Council, that the 2025 budget of the City of Sea Pleasant, as enacted by Ordinance O-2513, adopted on May 12, 2025, shall be amended to repay the Internal Revenue Services overpayment.
Is there a motion?
I move that we adopt O-26-05.
Second.
Jones. Second by Jones. Are there any questions, comments, concerns? Not hearing any.
I have one question.
Okay.
Are we paying this back in installments or just one lump?
Voting is open. Motion passes 5, 1 abstain. 5.
We're gonna move on to 4.3.
Ordinance O-26, introduced November 3rd, 2025. First reading November 3rd, 2025. November 10th, sorry. An ordinance concerning Chapter 10, Code Enforcement, for the purpose of renaming certain sections of this chapter to reflect the current position title of the Neighborhood Commercial and Compliance Inspector. By amending Chapter 10, Code Enforcement, Sections 10-1, 10-2, and 10-3,
We can go ahead and there a motion to approve this ordinance.
Move that we approve ordinance O-26-06.
Second.
Line Board Online voting is Motion passes 5-1.
We're gonna move on to the 4.4, the emergency ordinance 026-07.
Emergency ordinance 0-07. First reading November 10th. An emergency ordinance concerning amendment of the fiscal year 2025 budget for the city of Sea Pleasant, Maryland.
He wants the memo.
Memo is attached.
It's there. It was down. Mhm. See it? Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Council. The memo is in reference to filling the Ward 2 vacancy due to our untimely passing of Councilmember Hope Love. Skipping through, the charter mandates if there's a vacancy that occurs in the mayor or council within 15, when it's 15 months remaining or more remaining, that you have to do a special election. So the special election will require for the council to give the direction to the Board of Supervisors of Election to move forward with the special election. We begin the process. Purpose of the emergency ordinance, when we completed the budget, Mr. Harris wanted the money to go into contingency versus being directly in the clerk's budget. If it was in the clerk's budget, we would need to do an emergency ordinance. And because of the time frame, it requires for the special election to take place within 75 days of vacancy. So we're already counting down. So November 4th was the date that the vacancy occurred. So the special election needs to be held January 18th, 2026.
Even though you already summarized.
Okay, so it says, due to the untimely passing of Honorable Councilmember Hope Love, the city of Sea Pleasant must advertise to fill the vacancy. The charter was amended on January 9, 2023 to fill the vacancy of the mayor and council by special election. If there are more than 15 months remaining in the term, please review the sections in the charter listed below to fill the vacancy. C-615 of your charter, which deals with special election. All city elections shall be conducted by the Board of Supervisors of Election with the assistance of the city clerk in the same manner and with the same personnel, if practicable, as the regular city's election, in accordance with the provisions of this sections are as follows. A, generally, in addition to regular scheduled elections, special elections shall be held to resolve elections resulting in tie and or fill vacancies that have greater than 15 months of the time before the next regularly scheduled election, which shall be conducted pursuant to this section. C says special election to fill vacancies. 1, if at any point the office of the mayor and or one or more seats of the council becomes vacant within more than 15 months remaining in the term, the Board of Supervisors of Election at the direction of the council, shall conduct a special election to fill a vacancy. 2, the special election shall be held within 75 days of the date of vacancy was created, notwithstanding any provisions of this subsection. No special election to fill a vacancy shall be held. Page 2 of the memo basically gives you the qualifications of a council person, which was amended also in 2023. Councilperson should have resided, in the city for at least 1 year immediately preceding the election, and shall have been a qualified registered voter of the city for 1 year. Councilperson shall maintain a permanent residence in the city during their term. The minimum age for a city council person shall be 25 years of age. The special election needs to be held by January 18, 2026. We will be mailing the notice of the vacancy and candidates' interest to the resident of Ward 2 by Monday, November 17, 2025, with a due date of December 1st, 2025. It further states that we will need to have an emergency budget amendment ordinance for the special election, as the approved budget does not have election costs in the city's budget. The final budget amendment ordinance will be on December agenda for approval.
This word is practice. Either want to keep it as is. That will be, as we spoke about, early voting, vote by mail, and the actual election. Is that the see of the council, or is there something that you all would like to move a little faster, or something you want to add or take away? Just keep it as is. I just need a consensus from everybody that we know we need to fill the position because it's more than 15 months. But that, no, the way that we will fill it, the way we go about. Because we have 75 days to fill the position. So we're working on a small window, whereas normally we have how long of a?
So normally with the general election, advertising in the election of the year of the election, in the election, early voting is usually is. So we do have time to do all. We can do vote by mail, we can do early voting. The candidate packet will be due in by December. The same company, Electech, that did the election here, I've already submitted the document over to them so that they can begin the mailing. I've already contacted the Board of Elections to receive the active voter list for Ward 2 only. That information has already been provided to them. So the mailing will be done, it probably will, the holiday being tomorrow, no later than Friday at the latest. So that will give the notice to the ward of the vacancy. On Thursday, upon my return to office, that's when I'll put the packet together, so it will go on the city's website. Information has already been provided to public engagement to circulate about the notice of the vacancy. But the due date, the vote by mail will be dropped in December with a return date of January 9th. If we do early voting, we will only do 1 day, and that was agreed upon Ms. Boone and, myself. We spoke on Friday. Initially, I was going to do 2 days, but unfortunately, the recommendation was 1 day due to Ms. Boone's schedule. I would not be comfortable with holding early voting if Ms. Boone cannot be in the room. So the early voting date will be, typically we would do it like the week before, but timing is not on our side. So we're going to do it on the day before, and then the election will be held on January 6th. And we will schedule it for city so that 16th.
No, that's 16th.
January 16th, 2026, the election must be held by January 18th, which is a Sunday. Yes.
So that was the purpose of the memo. The second piece is the actually emergency ordinance because funds need to be transferred. Get the ordinance out.
Ms. Crump, have to read that.
Is that actual cost, is it the 50,000 gonna be enough?
So the 50,000 would be enough. Receive the estimate, well, our, or may change tomorrow, but one estimate from the election company was approximately $50. I've not received my quote from the board because they would do the voter notification card as well as provide staffing after. So from 9 to 5, they answer the calls because that's their business hours, but after 5 o'clock, because the polls typically won't close till 8, we have to pay for their staff to stay. So that quote has not been provided to me. Typically, it's no more than about 1,200. However, I would rather have actual numbers because it's being mailed to a smaller ward. It's not going throughout the entire city. So that number will be less, but I can't give you that actual number today.
Can you give us an estimate about how many residents?
400
400
for Ward 2, and that's the active list.
So typically, every year there's money, for election activity in the clerk departments. I remember one year in particular, it seemed like like there was a couple of positions that became available. So I know you guys were asking about how much it costs, but I don't want us to put so that we don't have to come back. You know, if something happens, before July, we don't have to come back.
I think the ordinance is request 50. Yeah, so that will more than enough. Yeah.
That would, yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
that's
will
like 2
be
times.
enough to
Right.
remain in the event that something else happens, beyond our.
Did you have a question?
Not on the money, but on the dates. So you're mailing something out this week, and they'll have, who wants to run, they'll have less than 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And it's a shorter time because we have a short time.
Right.
And the clock started, unfortunately, on November 4th.
But also, that may be a portion that we would like to revisit. Because we don't know, maybe have government affairs to review it. If it's 2023.
Yeah, that's a new.
But is 75 days gonna really keep a crunch like that?
That's
You
the
like
intent.
that? You want it, okay,
That's
if
the
that's,
intent.
okay, if that's what you want, I just
I
wanna
mean,
make
in
sure.
this situation, so in this situation, right, it may feel away. But think about if somebody moved out of the city or somebody got arrested or whatever, right? We would want to, people don't want to go without, representation. Because they don't even give that, federal. Y'all saw what happened with Kennedy. They were swearing in the next person and they still had to.
It does.
Yeah.
So
And the
putting
dates work.
everything on paper and seeing the dates and ensuring that it can be done, it can
Okay.
happen.
I just wanna make sure, I always have to ask to make sure that, even when I spoke to Mrs. Ball, I was like, ooh, started on this day, oh, we gotta move fast, so, just wanted to make sure everybody was clear, everybody understood, and you wanna read the ordinance, Ms. Crump? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Emergency ordinance number O-2607, introduced by council, date 5, First reading, November 10th, 2025. An emergency ordinance concerning amendment of the fiscal year 2025 Pleasant, Maryland. By the Seat Pleasant City Council. 5, budget of Pleasant as enacted by ordinance O-2513 adopted 12.5 shall be amendment for the purpose as follows. General Fund account title, to decrease the following line item, 5460, current budgeted amount, $214,985, adjusted 50,000, new budget amount, 164,905. Expenditure increase, expenditure increase the following line item, city clerk election expense, 55, account number 5580, current budget amount 0, adjusted amount $50,000, new budget amount $50,000. Section 2, and be it further ordained by the Seat Pleasant City Council that an emergency exists that affects life, health, property, or the public peace requiring immediate action. The emergency is that the delay would be occasioned by proceeding with this ordinance as a regular ordinance effected in 20 days after the approval by the mayor or approval of the city council over the veto of the mayor would prevent the city of Seat Pleasant from conducting the special election to fill the vacant council seat for Ward 2 within the required timeline of 75 days.
For the, I'm willing to make a motion to
So move.
Are there any questions? Scott? Are there any questions? Comments, concerns? Not hearing any.
Online voting is open. Measure passes unanimously.
Thank you all. We're going to move on to our reports. Mayor Porter, we know that we heard your report last week. Is there anything that you want to?
No, there's nothing specific that I'd like to highlight, Madam President. My report is in board docs. Thank you for the opportunity.
Are there any questions for Mayor Porter for his report? Not hearing anything. We're going to move on. Thank you, Mayor Porter. We're going to move on to Council President report. It is in board docs if you have any questions. Yes.
Just wondering if gotten an update, recommended, as well as if there's an update to how the 40,000+ that was left in the account will be used across the goal categories.
I did not see any updates as of yet. We were supposed to meet on Wednesday of this week.
Okay.
To kind of go over some things, but they may give us another date that would be conducive to everyone, because of course no one from Seat Pleasant will be able to be there that.
Thank you.
So I will pass it along as soon as I get more information. I won't. Is there any other questions? Interim City Manager, Mr. Harris.
City Council, my report is on board docs. It's changed since questions. I would just note that, there will be an email, public engagement to send out an email about the rescheduled, food giveaway this week. And then there'll be another one, right before Thanksgiving, I believe. Tuesday before Thanksgiving, we'll be sending it out. I'll answer any questions anyone may have.
Are there any questions? Are there any questions? You have a question? Councilwoman
I have a
Kearney.
general- Given the ordinance that we had today regarding the Ward 2 seat and the budget having to increase for special election, I understand that it wasn't in the clerk's budget, and that we had to move it. It's less than 6 months, and the contingency is going down at like an aggressive rate. And so I just am curious about like sort of the pulse check on that account in light of the fact that we're not halfway through the year at this point.
So what I will note that from a financial standpoint, since the city has taken some certain things up, historically what would happen is that we would have robust reserve account. That wouldn't necessarily be an issue. I would tell you that just looking at it and meeting with the CFO, even with the transfer of funds for the special election, still not concerned about it, because the amount of vacancies we currently have in multiple departments. So what may be monies have not been spent, still saving those. Spending of the sea hasn't been uncommon. Every year we've been at there was an issue more than enough. I would provide some type of memo. The Street project is as of morning is 99 complete approval. Echo, we've gotten some appraisals on the property. We've had the RFP out. We have a realtor now, so that project will be sold pretty soon. That money will automatically go to contingency when it will require a budget as well. So I would tell you, I'm not concerned. I think we're still in a good position to keep our operation.
Okay, thank you for that reassurance. I think the last thing is like, at the end of December, I know everything obligated, I know we said we did all that. I just would like to see next month, like maybe a closeout, like statement, memo, something that details that we're in a good place. The last time, one of the last times we've seen sort of like a line by line. I know that we were still even cleaning up that document, things that we were finding. So just like a final cap on, bow on that process and where we are or where we left off would be great.
And we're looking, the CFO is providing the departments with for the last 6 months. I had the opportunity to already kind of see it. Some categories that particularly I wanted to see. Once that's out, we can provide.
Hearing any. Thank you for your report. We're going to move on to announcement. Mayor Porter, you want to read our announcements for us this evening? please.
I'm more than happy to, Madam President. 8.1, Veterans Day Wreath Laying Ceremony tomorrow, November the 11th, 2025, Sea Pleasant Veterans Memorial Park. That will be 5720 Addison Road. That's right next to the Sea Pleasant Activity Center at 10:30. It'll be a laying of a wreath. Okay, anyone is invited to come out. You know, it'll be a short ceremony for that for tomorrow in honor of our veterans. 8.2, Councilmember McCarthy is hosting a talk about it on Tuesday, November the 18th, 2025, at the, I think it's Guanacaste, that is 59488 Martin Luther King Jr. Highway, Sea Pleasant, Maryland, from 6 until 8. She's passed out a flyer. I believe the flyer is gone. Would you like to say anything about that in specific, Councilmember McCarthy? Okay, thank you. 8.3, Councilmember Kearney is hosting a turkey trot on Saturday, November the 22nd, 2025, Birchleaf Park, 801 Birchleaf Avenue, Sea Pleasant, Maryland, from 9 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. Would you have any comment on that in specific, Councilmember Kearney?
To be able to attend. We're expecting music, activities, and up to 5K walk, and so we welcome neighbors to come fellowship and move their bodies, and also to have a good time. So thank you, Mayor Porter. And the event information is on the social media, but as well as you can do bit.ly/TrotSP, or reach out to Ms. Miller for more details.
Thank you, Member McCurney. Sounds like a real rousing trotting event. Hopefully next time we will have an opportunity to actually come and be a part of it. 8.4, the regular work session, Monday, December the 1st, 2025, Sea Pleasant City Hall, Council Chambers, 6301 Addison Road, Sea Pleasant, Maryland. It's going to be hybrid and by Zoom webinar at 6 p.m. Meeting link details are available on the city's website. Also 8.5, the public session, Monday, December the 8th, 2025, Sea Pleasant City Hall, Council Chambers, again, 6311 Addison Road, hybrid by Zoom webinar at 7 p.m. Meeting links available on the city's website. That includes the announcements, Madam President.
Order. Is there anything else?
I want to reiterate another announcement. The homegoing celebration for Councilwoman Hope Love is Wednesday, November 12th, 9:30 a.m. Way of the Cross Church.
Each one of the council members have received something on that in the last week.
Yeah.
Wear pink.
That's correct. Wear pink or wear something with pink in it.
Is there anything else for the good of the group tonight? If not, Councilman Jones, you want to close us out in prayer, and we will adjourn at the end of the prayer. Want us to stand, or?
You can comfortable.
Okay.
Remain seated. Eternal God, as we bring this session to a close, we pause with gratitude for the guidance and clarity and patience you provided this evening. Thank you for every voice that was heard, every concern that was shared, and every decision made with the good of this community in mind. Grant each council member, the mayor, each staff member, and all of our residents a safe passage home. Strengthen us with the wisdom for the work still ahead, and help us return with renewed commitment to justice, understanding, and service. May peace rest on our city tonight, and may unity lead us forward. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. It is now 8:57. This meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you.